A memory from the holiday. Halbert's eyes sparkled as the car sped up the winding mountain roads, the city fading away in the rearview mirror. Beside him, Helena hummed a tune she had made up, watching the scenery change as the greenery of the hills surrounded them. The air smelled of fresh pine and damp earth, a sharp contrast to the dusty streets of their hometown. "This is going to be awesome, right?" Halbert asked, grinning at his older sister. Helena nodded enthusiastically. "Definitely. I can't wait to see the waterfalls." The two of them had been talking about this family trip for weeks. Their parents, who usually worked long hours and were always busy, had promised to make this holiday special, to escape the noise of everyday life and take a break in the peaceful hill station of Nandanpur. Halbert bounced up and down in his seat. "I'm going to climb every rock by the waterfalls and maybe even swim under them." "Careful with that, Hal. You might end up falling in," Helena teased. Halbert shot her a playful glare. "I won't fall, you'll see. I'm as sure-footed as a mountain goat." Their parents, sitting in the front, exchanged amused glances. "As long as you don't try to jump off the waterfalls, we're good," their dad, Mr. Dawson, called over his shoulder with a chuckle. "Don't worry, Dad, I won't," Halbert said, laughing. "But I still want to go to the biggest one there is." The excitement was palpable as they continued their journey. The road twisted and turned, revealing hidden views of the valley below and little villages perched on the hillside. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of anticipation, they arrived at the cozy hill station. The cool breeze and the sound of birds chirping greeted them as they got out of the car. Helena took a deep breath. "It smells so fresh here. I can already feel the peace." Halbert jumped out of the car, ready to explore. "Let's go to the waterfalls, Mom. Come on." After a quick unpacking and settling in their charming rented cabin, the family made their way toward the famous Nandanpur waterfall, which was said to be one of the most picturesque spots in the region. When they reached the waterfalls, Halbert was the first to rush toward the clear blue water, mesmerized by the spray mist that filled the air. The sound of the water crashing against the rocks was thunderous, yet somehow soothing, like the earth itself was speaking in a language all its own. "Wow, it's huge," he exclaimed, staring at the mighty fall. Helena walked more slowly, taking in the serene beauty of the place. "It's magical," she whispered. They had brought along a picnic basket, and after setting up a small blanket near the edge, the family sat and enjoyed their lunch, watching the water cascade down from the cliff above. Halbert's excitement was still buzzing, and he couldn't sit still for long. "I'm going to explore. I want to see where the water comes from," Halbert announced, jumping up and dashing toward the rocky path that led up to the falls. "Hal, be careful," their mom, Mrs. Dawson, called out, but she was used to Halbert's adventurous spirit by now. Helena stood up to follow him, though she was more cautious about venturing too close to the rushing water. Her mom shot her a warning look and she smiled, nodding to show she'd be careful. "Let's go together," Helena suggested, grabbing her brother's arm as they climbed the rocky path. The climb was more difficult than Halbert had anticipated, but he was determined. Soon, they reached a spot where the waterfall split into smaller streams, creating a pool at the base. The water was crystal clear and cold, glistening in the sunlight. "This is perfect," Halbert shouted, splashing his sister playfully. "Come on, get in." Helena hesitated for a moment. "It's freezing, Hal. Come on, you're not scared, are you?" Halbert teased, pulling her into the water. Helena squealed but couldn't help laughing. Soon, they were both laughing and splashing in the cool, refreshing water. After a while, as they were catching their breath and enjoying the moment, something caught Helena's eye. Floating gently near a small rock was a tiny creature, its shell shimmering slightly as it moved in the current. It was a little tortoise, probably no bigger than Halbert's hand. "Look," Helena cried, pointing to the water. "It's a tortoise." Halbert's eyes widened with excitement. "It's so cute. I've never seen one this small before." Without thinking, Halbert crouched down and carefully scooped the tortoise out of the water, holding it gently in his hands. The little creature blinked up at him, seemingly unfazed by the attention. "What should we do with it?" Helena asked, fascinated by the small, peaceful creature. Halbert smiled mischievously. "We should take it home. We could keep it as a pet." Helena bit her lip, unsure. But what about the tortoise's home? Won't it miss the water and the forest? Halbert looked down at the tortoise. Its tiny legs were moving slowly, as though it was content with the way things were. We'll make a perfect home for it. It can live in our garden, and we can visit it every day. It'll be happy. I don't know. Helena hesitated. What if it's meant to live here? Maybe it likes the waterfall. Halbert frowned for a moment, then grinned. We'll bring it back if it doesn't like it. But we should at least try. Helena thought for a moment before nodding. Okay, we can try. They carefully placed the tortoise in a small container, making sure it had enough air and space to move around. After saying a quiet goodbye to the waterfall, they returned to their parents. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun had begun to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple. Halbert and Helena showed their parents the little tortoise, who had been quietly exploring its container during the walk back. Isn't it adorable? Halbert asked, beaming. Can we keep it? Mrs. Dawson looked at the tiny creature thoughtfully. Well, we'll have to make sure it's safe and comfortable. We can keep it for the rest of the trip and see how it does. That night, as the family sat around the dinner table, the tortoise rested in a makeshift little habitat by the window, content and quiet. Halbert smiled to himself, thinking about how the tortoise had become part of their adventure. It was a perfect memory to take back home, a souvenir from the waterfalls that would stay with them forever. And as the night grew deeper and the stars sparkled overhead, the Dawson family felt closer than ever. The holiday had brought them together in a way they hadn't expected, and even the little tortoise had its role in making this trip unforgettable.